Welcome to episode 314 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak encouragement into the hearts of educators and get you informed and energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking about how you and your students can use movement to increase work quality, focus, and creativity. Visit truthforteachers.com for an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode. This episode is brought to you in part by a podcast that's essential listening for anyone who works with or cares for kids. It's called Opportunity Gap: How to Support Kids of Color Who Learn Differently, hosted by Julian Saavedra, an assistant principal in Philadelphia with nearly 20 years of public school experience. Julian dives deep into practical strategies with expert guests to help close the opportunity gap for students who face both racial and learning challenges. One of my favorite episodes is How to Teach Kids Independence and How to Build a Supportive Village for Kids. Each episode is packed with insights that you can apply right away, both as an educator and as a parent. This podcast is a powerful resource for you to share with students' families, helping you to partner together for student success. There's an episode for parents on what to do after a parent-teacher conference and how to build a supportive village for kids. So you can listen to this podcast yourself or pass it along to students' families by searching for Opportunity Gap: How to Support Kids of Color Who Learn Differently in your favorite podcast app. That's Opportunity Gap: How to Support Kids of Color Who Learn Differently. Today we're talking about how you and your students can use movement to increase work quality, focus, and creativity. I've talked before about Cal Newport, the author of the book Deep Work, and how he talks about the difference between deep work and shallow work. So deep work refers to the ability to focus intensely on a task that requires cognitive effort, and this leads to high-quality output and meaningful progress. This is the type of focus where distractions fade and you're fully absorbed in what you're doing. It's very much related to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow theory. On the flip side of being in flow or doing deep work is the shallow work. And Cal Newport defines this as tasks that don't require a lot of thought, like answering emails or just attending to minor tasks. These activities can fragment our attention and make it harder to enter a flow state or to do deep work. Understanding this distinction can help both teachers and students protect time for deeper, more meaningful work while minimizing distractions from the shallow work. One of Newport's suggestions for training the brain to do deep work, to stay focused, and to stay in that flow state is what he calls productive meditation. This is a practice that involves focusing on a specific problem while engaged in physical movement. The productive meditation technique leverages Barbara Oakley's research. She's an educator and author known for her work in learning science, and she coined the term diffuse thinking. This is the brain's capacity to work in the background when we're not concentrating. The opposite of this is the kind of focused thinking that we usually consider the path toward problem solving, which is concentrating intensely, using your full attention and applying logic and problem solving skills to tackle it. And both focused thinking and diffuse thinking are important. Focused thinking helps you dive deep into a subject, while diffuse thinking opens the door to innovative solutions and creative breakthroughs. But in schools, we tend to structure learning on focused thinking only. It's by far the most common approach. If you're trying to figure something out or solve a hard problem, you sit down and concentrate on it, right? But diffuse thinking is powerful too, especially for really complex problems, working through big projects, and of course, creativity. In other words, diffuse thinking is essential for deep work. You can learn more about the power of diffuse thinking in episode 296 of Truth for Teachers. So I have a whole episode of this. Check back episode 296 if you want to learn more about diffuse thinking. In this episode, I'm going to go deeper into one method of tapping into the power of diffuse thinking, which is movement. You see, diffuse thinking isn't something that you have to force. It occurs naturally when your mind is relaxed or wandering, like when you're taking a shower or a bath or just daydreaming. You might also naturally shift into diffuse thinking mode when walking or jogging, riding a bike, or experiencing other movement. The movement of our bodies helps our brains relax, which results in more innovative ideas. It also increases our ability to focus during deep work sessions in which we're trying to use focus thinking. In other words, these diffuse thinking times of moving around, letting our brains relax, help us come back later on and do that concentrating, focus thinking, deep work. Interestingly, there is some research showing that movement in vehicles produces the same effect. I definitely experience this when I'm driving on an open, familiar highway and my brain isn't concentrating super hard on the road. Diffuse thinking happens naturally. My brain relaxes, my mind wanders. Trains, Amtrak, and that sort of thing are infamously popular places for writers, for artists, for deep thinkers to create. There's something about seeing the passing landscape that just opens the mind up and helps us make new connections. You might even experience the same on an airplane, where you're looking out the window at the clouds and the distant buildings and the land below, and you find yourself thinking, but you're not trying to think. And in those moments, you might have a breakthrough on an issue that's been simmering on the back burner of your mind. So that's some of the background information here on the optimal state that we're trying to achieve here. Let's talk now about how to incorporate this into the classroom. Often we think of movement as a break from learning, and it certainly can be. That's the research-based reason for recess, for example, and for doing brain breaks between lessons. But even though physical movement works as an optimal break from problem solving or concentrating, it can also be part of your work process and your students' learning process. This is what Cal Newport was talking about when he identified productive meditation, this idea of moving around while thinking about a problem. You're not focusing intently on it, you're just letting your mind explore it. So here's some ways it could look for you and your students. The first idea is in standing meetings and discussions. A lot of innovative companies like Google and Apple regularly conduct meetings standing up instead of sitting down. This is an idea you could use when doing group work in class, or even suggest that students try when they're studying with friends after school. This is helpful because when you're standing up, you're A, less likely to waste time because you're not as relaxed, and B, conversations tend to be more focused and to the point. Discussions don't go on for an hour when everyone's been standing up the whole time. You're also increasing blood flow in your body and oxygen to your brain when you stand up. So that can help you think more clearly and keep you alert. Folks who find themselves dozing off during meetings might find that a standing meeting prevents that. So this might even be a strategy that could be helpful in your grade level or subject area team meetings, or as part of an activity in longer staff meetings or professional development. Maybe there's one task that you do together and it's standing up. I'll toss that suggestion out there, even though personally I found that most educators are on their feet all day. And if the PD is happening or the staff meeting is happening on the same day they've been teaching, they tend to welcome the chance to sit. So sometimes a better alternative is giving the option of sitting, standing, or doing a walking meeting in which you discuss the topic at hand while taking a 10 to 15-minute walk. Educators who have been feeling trapped indoors all day might find that their thinking and energy levels improve when they're outside getting fresh air and talking conversationally with a colleague while walking around the school's perimeter. So even if this idea of a standing or walking meeting isn't appealing for you personally, consider how it might work for your students who generally have higher energy levels than the adults in the room and yet are far more sedentary for the majority of the day than we are. In your classroom, standing meetings or check-ins could work as a quick way to boost energy and engagement. For example, at the start of a lesson, you could gather students for a brief standing discussion about the day's goals or a problem that they need to solve together. If you do morning meetings or circle time with younger students, you could do all or part of them standing up. You could also use standing check-ins during transitions, like moving to independent work or group projects. So, for example, before starting a group project, you might gather everyone for a standing discussion where you go over the instructions, students share their goals, they ask questions. This brief moment of movement not only helps them refocus, but also breaks the monotony of sitting for long periods. It recharges their brains, it reduces restlessness, and encourages more active participation. Plus, by making it a routine part of the day, students will know that they have these regular opportunities to move, which can make the classroom flow more smoothly and improve overall engagement. Another option of how to incorporate these stand-up meetings or discussions is to end class with a standing question of the day, or a standing exit ticket type of wrap-up, in which students gather in a circle to share their thoughts on a topic or respond to a prompt. This can build a sense of community and give everyone a chance to speak while keeping the energy high. You could also choose to allow students to select when to stand up during individual and group work. In my own classroom, I've always liked to normalize standing up, laying down, and just moving to areas of the classroom that felt comfortable. Anytime my students were trying to read, write, discuss, create, I wanted them to be able to position themselves in a way that was going to help them focus on what they were doing and not just focus on how uncomfortable they were sitting in the chair all day. And everyone doesn't need to make the same choice. If some kids want to stand while they're doing their work, you could have an area in the back of the room for them to move to so it's less of a distraction for the folks who are sitting. So consider the stand-up meetings. Another way to incorporate movement in your classroom is dictation while walking. It's often easier and faster to speak your thoughts out loud than to write them. When you're having trouble phrasing things in an email or you have a lengthy document you need to write, you could try dictating it into your phone. Use the voice memo function and then you can play it back later, taking notes on or transcribing what you said. The transcription is automatic now, thanks to AI. You could also use a speech-to-text function. So if you're on iPhone, there's a microphone icon that will allow you to just speak and it immediately types out what's on the screen for you. Just as this can be useful for us as adults, and this is a feature I use all the time to record my ideas. Even sometimes I will sketch out the script for a podcast that way. I will just either walk on the treadmill or walk around my neighborhood and I'll just say the ideas. And it flows a lot better than when I sit down to actually type out an outline. So it really works well for us as adults, and it's also a great approach for students, particularly those who dislike writing or find that they speak more easily than they write. Or, if they're English language learners, they may find it easier to say it rather than to try to write about it. So you could suggest this to your students. If you're struggling to write an essay or a research paper, try dictating it into your device. The idea is to get your body moving, look around at your environment while you're thinking instead of just staring at the screen. Sometimes this can help you do better focused thinking than when you're just sitting there looking at a blank page. Once you're done, you can take that speech-to-text transcript and clean it up, meaning fix your typos, make sure the ideas flow well into one another, and so on. You can actually complete many of your school assignments this way. So this concept of students being able to dictate their ideas and to use movement to help them think, to use standing up to help them think better, this is all part of my unit called Focused Attention as part of Finding Flow Solutions. And this is a unit for secondary students with 10 ready-to-use lessons about how to take productive breaks, how to create healthy phone habits, how to manage distractions, how to use movement to do better focused work, and build their concentration stamina so that they can tolerate and push through boredom and procrastination. It even introduces students to Cal Newport's research on deep work versus shallow work. Each lesson takes just 15 to 20 minutes to implement, and it has slides that you show the class that explains everything for you and guides you through the activities together, including a student journal page that helps kids reflect on the topic. So you can use my Finding Flow Solutions unit on focused attention to introduce the idea of dictation while walking to your students, or just share it with them in your own way. Wait a couple days after you've introduced the idea and then have a quick class meeting to invite students to share how it worked. You can help them distinguish between how it feels to move from focused thinking into diffuse thinking, and how it feels to use movement as a different way to keep working on a problem when they're tired of sitting and concentrating on it. So we've talked about standing or walking meetings and discussions, and we've talked about dictating while standing or walking instead of sitting down to write. The third way you and your students can tap into the power of movement for deep work and creativity is listening to information while moving. A lot of people say they don't like audiobooks or podcasts because they find that their mind wanders too much. And if that's been true for you, it's possible that you've been expecting yourself to do focused thinking while you listen to information, when in fact, it's diffuse thinking that's happening. Try listening to information using headphones while going for a walk, a run, a bike ride, or even while using cardio equipment at the gym. Allow yourself to just listen and get into diffuse thinking mode, in which it's okay for your mind to wander. You can always rewind if you miss something important. But I found that often the things that my mind wander to while I'm listening are just as important as the thing that I'm listening to. It can be really, really valuable. So try sharing this idea with students, either through my Finding Flow unit on focused attention or just by talking with them about it. Guide students to understand that this can be a great way to consume books, to learn about current events, to perform research for school projects, and to just find out more about the hobbies and the things they care about. It doesn't have to be scholarly and academic. In addition to trying this strategy on their own, you can also create listening assignments for your students. So curate audio resources, such as a playlist of podcast episodes, or recorded lectures or audiobooks, or a section of an audiobook. You could even record an audio of an upcoming lesson, so you're the one that students are listening to, and then assign students to take a walk and listen to it while maybe walking laps on the track at school, or around a defined zone of the school property during class. Or you can assign them to do that before they come to the next class. It could be one of the homework assignments. And then afterwards, students can conduct standing meetings in small groups to discuss a specific prompt that you want them to consider. So listening to information while moving can be really good. The fourth and final idea is to try walking collaboration and brainstorming. So in this way, you're structuring your class time to include opportunities for students to walk and talk. Here's a couple ways that might look. You could try walking check-ins. So at the start of the week, after a holiday break, or before starting a new project, could you take students for a brief walk around the school grounds while discussing goals, expectations, any concerns they might have? This informal setting can help students feel more comfortable sharing their thoughts. It might look like literature circles. These can be transformed into walking discussions as students take a stroll around the school while discussing themes, characters, or plot points from a book they're reading. Peer feedback sessions can work like this too. Students pair up, they go for a walk while discussing a topic or planning a collaborative project. Maybe even debate walks. You can assign students different viewpoints on a topic and have them walk in pairs or small groups as they discuss their positions, which can encourage them to articulate their thoughts more clearly and dynamically because their brains are more alert from the movement. Another idea is mindfulness walks. You can take your students on a quiet walk, asking them to notice the sights, sounds, and smells around them. After the walk, students can reflect on their observations through journaling or group discussion, connecting that experience back to their lessons. And finally, you could try a goal-setting walk. So at the beginning of a new term, semester, quarter, whatever, or beginning of a new project, you can take your students for a walk to set personal or academic goals. This walk is a great way for them to brainstorm what they want to achieve in the coming term. You can discuss aspirations. You can allow them to brainstorm with a friend or just walk alone. And then afterwards, students can write down what they've been thinking about, journal about it, or even discuss it in a stand-up meeting. So there's lots of different ways to make this work. And I think one of the most powerful ways I'll share here in a bonus tip is to try as many ideas as you can outside. That really boosts the benefits of listening to information while moving, and really all of the ideas that I've shared, is being in the outdoors. There is tons of research that shows that moving outside is even more beneficial for both physical and mental health. For example, exposure to natural sunlight helps your body produce vitamin D, which is essential for bone health and immune function. Additionally, natural light exposure regulates circadian rhythms, leading to better sleep patterns and quality. Beyond physical health, nature plays a significant role in mental well-being. This time spent outdoors can reduce stress and promote relaxation while boosting our moods through the release of endorphins, which are our feel-good hormones. Nature has also been linked to improve focus and cognitive function, enhancing mental clarity and reducing fatigue. These are all things that we and our students need, right? I personally notice that being in nature sparks creativity. In more tranquil settings, I can get lost in my own thoughts and find that new ideas and perspectives come to me a lot more easily and more frequently than when I'm inside. And in busy, noisy outdoor settings, that extra stimulation can spark creativity in a different way. It's energizing rather than calming, and that impacts the type of thinking that I do in each setting. So if you're liking this idea, but there isn't a quiet open field or some other place on your school grounds for students to think and walk and talk like in a peaceful environment, don't discount that idea. A dynamic environment can actually be more beneficial for students. It may encourage them to interact more with their surroundings and with each other. It's a totally different atmosphere than the classroom, which makes it easier for them to tap into a different level of focus and inspiration. Now, I want to address a question that I'm sure you're wondering, which is, what if kids are off topic or off task? And my answer is, if you don't think that this would be a good use of class time because students would just get off topic and not use the time well, you could try using this activity as a break or transition between lessons. In other words, it can take the place of planned downtime or structured brain breaks or other activities that you have kids do when their minds are full and you know they need a couple of moments to decompress before you begin the next thing. So you could tell them, in our next activity, we're going to learn about blank. Before that, we're going to take a 5-minute walk and talk to prepare for it. You'll pair up with your usual walking partner and you'll discuss blank. When we get back to the classroom, I'll ask you to share blank. So in this way, if you feel like the kids aren't going to be talking about what they're supposed to be talking about, this was going to be downtime anyway. This was not going to be instructional time. This was just going to be a break from learning anyway. So you may feel like that's a little bit less risky, and you could use this as a first step. Try it out and see how your kids respond. Keep in mind that off-topic conversations or off-task behavior are to be expected. I mean, that's a normal thing anyway, but especially in these kinds of activities. You don't have to choose to view that as a problem here. If a task or a conversation is so essential that you can't afford kids to be off topic or you need to assess them on it or something like that, maybe try that activity in a more conventional way in the classroom. But for a lower stakes activity, this kind of thing can really boost kids' energy levels and ability to focus and concentrate afterward. So you could do something like this right off that 5 minutes of class time and know that once kids come back in, they get settled down, that their minds are going to be clearer and more open to new possibilities and ready to think creatively. So you can try standing or walking meetings and discussions. You can try dictating while standing and walking, and you can try listening or discussing while standing or walking. I encourage you to approach this like every other productivity and mindset hack, as a lifelong experiment. See what works for you and your students. The more tools you have in your toolboxes, the better you all can ensure that your needs are met. Some days, standing up might feel energizing, and some days you or your students might prefer to sit. Walking and talking might be the perfect format for some discussions that need to be held, while sitting quietly and listening intently to each other might be better for other personalities or other moments. There's no single right way to approach movement as a tool for creativity and deep thinking. Your takeaway truth for the week ahead is this: learning doesn't just happen when we're sitting down and concentrating. Creative ideas and problem solving often happen when we're not trying to force them, and often when we're not even consciously thinking about the topic. Experiment with this approach in your own life and work, and try it with your students. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.